Fincher is back on Netflix for the first time since Mank. Okay, I'll count Love, Death and Robots too, but needless to say it's been a while, and he's returned with his feature starring Michael Fassbender called The Killer. I was really looking forward to watching this movie, and I was on the cusp of actually seeing it in the cinema, but I didn't get the chance to. With real Zodiac, Mindhunter, Prisoners and Gone Girl tones in the way that it was shot and delivered, let's delve into this movie and explain all that there was to take away from it. Here is The Killer ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. This whole movie was centered around Fassbender's character, which had many aliases seeking revenge on the individuals who harmed Magdala due to her not giving up his identity. He was being seeked out and hunted due to the fact that he caused an assassination attempt to go sour when he killed an innocent civilian instead of the target that he was paid to in Paris. What was great about the opening section of the movie and the build-up to the botched attempt was that we were led down the path of believing that he was this excellent killer, and that the attempt that he'd waited days for was going to go successfully and smoothly. The inner dialogue that we would hear, his meditation methods, his disguise and his plans were so well thought out that it made us feel as though it wasn't going to go wrong. However, it was the catalyst of everything that we went on to see throughout the remainder of the movie, and ultimately the end of his career as a killer. The movie was split into 7 different sections: the target, the hideout, the lawyer, the brute, the expert, the client, and the epilogue. And each of these sections was something that flowed so seamlessly into the other. Whilst it was shown to us as chapters, you could tell that within the character's mind it was a checklist of places that he needed to go to and people that he needed to take out, each one leading him closer to the source of where his issues began, ultimately climaxing with him stalking and hunting Claiborne, the individual who put out the initial hit on the person in Paris who was supposed to get taken out. After Fassbender's character took out the taxi driver, Leo, the lawyer, Hodges, which was his employer, his assistant, Dolores, the brute, and the expert, it meant that he found his way to Claiborne, where he hadn't decided whether or not to kill him yet. It was during this time that we saw that he found out that Claiborne never meant for anybody that Fassbender's character cared about to get caught up in it. Hodges apparently just said to him that he'd wipe the trace of his involvement and provide a cleanup following the failed attempt. So with the killer realizing that there was no long-term threat and that Claiborne didn't have a problem with him, he let him go unharmed. Not before threatening to come back and finish off the job if there were to be any problems in the future. This was the conclusion of Fassbender's character breaking all of his rules that he had in place when he took on a job. Rules such as stick to the plan, anticipate, don't improvise, trust no one, fight only the battle you're paid to fight, and never yield an advantage. This final encounter was him trusting somebody, something that went against probably one of the most important rules in his game. With the epilogue showing us that he was now in the Caribbean after being back with Magdala, we saw that he claimed that he was now one of the many and not one of the few that were once like him, a killer. However, with his eye twitching, it showed that just like what happened when he was doing the job, he could grow restless, complacent, and bored. So I think it's supposed to be a relatively open-ended ending, and it's left down to us to decide on if he would return to the game. Throughout the movie, we saw that with him gradually breaking every one of his rules that he chose to live by whilst working the job, he was coming to terms with the fact that maybe he wasn't cut out for the job anymore. People that he cared for were being harmed, he was letting emotions get the better of him, and he made a huge mistake when carrying out that initial attempt. Something which it seemed like he hadn't done before, as those repercussions had never been chasing him. With him also stating that he couldn't remember the last time that he killed in an adventurous or creative way, and that he was growing tired of the hits from afar, him going after everybody and getting them in completely different ways. It almost acted like his last dance, as he knew that his time was coming to an end in that line of work, something which I thought was clear to see with the character. Overall review. I'm a big David Fincher fan. I think he's one of the best at what he does. Prisoners, Zodiac, Gone Girl and Mindhunter all fall into the same kind of genre, and they're some of the best in their field. The Killer, whilst I don't think it's as good as what those 3 movies and TV show are, it's definitely a gripping, enjoyable, thrilling and well-paced ride. Considering it's 2 hours, not for one moment was I clock watching or thinking that it was going slow, something that I commend it for. Considering that there wasn't much dialogue in it and we spent most of it just hearing his inner thoughts and the same line of dialogue being spoken over and over again, It absolutely flew by, and I felt like I could have watched even more. Picking up at the point in the killer's life where he was at the top of his game, but where he made a mistake that was on the cusp of costing him his own life, was a direction that I didn't think the movie would go in. I thought we were going to be watching somebody at the top of their game succeeding, and somebody that they cared about getting caught up in it. However, it was the opposite, and I think it was better for that. But one thing it did show was just how good of a killer Fassbender's character actually was. The calm, collected nature of the character whilst in high-pressure situations was something which was hilariously serious to watch. Not at any moment did I feel like he was going to fail, and even though Fincher made the character pretty much invincible because he was just so good, it didn't make the fight scenes any less gripping, unbelievable, or not enjoyable. With the ending showing us that the character was out of the game and that he'd now become one of the many instead of the few, the events that we saw occur changed his life for the better, and it gave the movie a somewhat happy ending, if you can call it that. Not needing to kill Claiborne and getting to chill around a pool with the person that he loved whilst he could have the endless amount of money that he'd earned over the years. Knowing that there was no threat or bounty that was on his head, surely that's more of a relaxing life, right? This movie definitely feels like a post-2000s Fincher movie. The darkness that it emitted, the grading that the feature had, but the tone of the overall theme that was being conveyed. Like I said, I don't think it's his best, but it was definitely better than a lot of what I've seen in the past couple of months. Considering this was a Netflix movie as well, it's probably one of the best things that they've put out in a while too. They threw $150 million at it, so at least it was good. I thought Michael Fassbender did a great job in his role as the killer. His emotionless state and the blank facial expressions that he emitted were perfect for the character. However, whilst that was his outwards expression, we knew that on the inside he was struggling with his emotions and was actually at the point where he felt like he was going to erupt because he broke his own specific rules where he didn't give a He spent the entirety of the movie acting on emotion and not fighting the battle that he was paid to fight, so even though he went against it all, he still came out successful. He was perfect for this role and I'm glad we got to see him in it. He pretty much carried this movie as there wasn't really much involvement from anybody else. Personally, I do wish that I had have seen this movie in the cinema, because I don't know if it's a psychological thing, but something being a Netflix movie and a cinema movie just feels different. Netflix automatically makes me feel like it's not going to be as good as something that you'd get in the cinema for a long several-week run. But I think it's probably just something psychological. At its core, it's a great movie and one that I was really impressed with. Overall, in one sentence, how would I describe this movie? Well, I'd describe it as a gripping, thrilling ride where we get to see inside the mind of a killer who grew complacent due to the boring nature of the job, but found himself carrying out everything he desired in the opening section as he got revenge on those who did him wrong. I'd recommend giving this movie a watch. I definitely don't think you'll regret it. So, there you have it. The Killer ending explained. What did you think of this movie? Leave a comment down below and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.